Hi, I'm Kelly Lashar, and I'd like to thank the Pioneer Library System for inviting us to this question and answer time. We're looking forward to more mental health discussions with you. Today, I'm joined by Shayla Hanna.
I'm Shayla. I'm a therapist here at Restore, and I specialize in dialectical behavioral therapy.
Over the last couple of weeks, there has been some sort of box at the libraries, at the different libraries, that has given you guys the opportunity to ask questions related to mental health. And so what we're going to do is just one by one answer some of those questions that were received. And we want to thank you for participating if you were one that submitted a question. How do I know when my anxiety level is enough to need medication? So this is something I'll start this conversation off with talking about how the society talks about mental health. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the way we talk about it also causes people to feel like it's not real. So if I were to say, "Oh, I'm so anxious," or she's so bipolar," or "I feel so depressed today," we flippantly throw this word around. So there is a difference between feeling anxious and having clinical anxiety. There's a real difference there. And so, our bodies are designed to protect ourselves when we feel a real threat or a perceived threat. Even if we have the perceived threat that's just in our mind of what are they thinking about me, or I can't believe I did that. And our heart might start racing because our body kicks in a protection of the adrenaline and the fight or flight system, right? So what can happen is if we feel that and we get really nervous and we get really stressed, even before a presentation, we're going to do a presentation at work and we're feeling some angst, we're feeling anxious. That's okay. That is a feeling. That is an emotion, anxious. But whenever we get to a place where it's starting to affect our lives, it's affecting our relationships, it's affecting our work, the way we're parenting, what ends up happening is with anxiety, we can live in a continual state of that fight, flight, or freeze. We notice it with thoughts. We call it rumination of thoughts. Our thoughts are just spinning like a tape. I said that once to someone, like a cassette tape, and half the world now doesn't know what a cassette tape is. It's all digital. But like on a loop, we just think of this thing and we hook onto it. We have a thought. I'm afraid that what would be a thought? Even as basic as, I wonder what they think about me. I don't feel good about myself. I look bad. I feel stupid. I'm annoying. What do they think about me? So I go into a place and my mind is just saying that over and over and over and over. And my body starts reacting to that, because if I say I'm annoying and no one wants me in this space, my body feels threatened by that. And so it kicks in that adrenaline. I notice it because my heart is racing. Sometimes people talk about feeling tightness in their neck, or like a pressure on them. Even the body can absorb, when you have anxiety, the body can absorb it in physically. So we can have irritable bowel syndrome. We can have migraines, TMJ. All kinds of things can happen because your body is absorbing anxiety. But when anxiety gets to the place where you're starting to maybe even have some panic attacks, you've never had this before, it's an anxiety that feels like it's going to bleed into a panic attack. That's not normal. If it's affecting your diet, maybe you have no appetite, your stomach hurts all the time, you feel like if you eat, you're going to throw up, but you're hungry, but then you don't have an appetite, but you need to eat, all of these type of things. Anxiety can mess with your sleep. That can be one of those things that when you're laying there trying to go to sleep, your mind is racing and you can't, and you feel it in your body. So I think once it gets to a place where physically, there's actually two different ways that doctors can help you with medication. Some people just need a medication to help quiet that looping that's going on. Something to help quiet that rumination and those thoughts that keep repeating. Sometimes we need a medication for our body's physical response to it, that will help calm our heartbeat and things like that. So there are different ways that anxiety can affect people. Sometimes anxiety is really only in the form of social anxiety, which means if something is going on and I'm invited to it, I might cancel because I'm too nervous to be in that space. Or I even go to the door and then I turn around and go home because I'm so anxious. My heart is racing. I feel tight. I feel sweaty. I feel like I just have to run away as fast as possible because I'm scared of this place. And I would say if you have somebody in your life that's like that, recognize it as they're not trying to dismiss you or ignore you, or they don't want to avoid you. Sometimes it's just because they're so anxious they can't return your call, or they can't go to your house. It's hard to understand though, right? When a friend is like that, and we think, well, why aren't they replying to me, or things like that. So that social anxiety can really, and that's again an example of when it affects relationships. When you say, I think I feel so nervous all the time that I haven't even left my house, or I haven't gone to a friend's in a long time. I might need to talk to a professional about this. Sometimes the anxiety is actually another part of anxiety. When I was talking about this, is more that generalized anxiety disorder. And some, like we talked about earlier with depression medicine, some antidepressants can help both of that. Sometimes our mood is a mix of depression and anxiety. I think just ultimately, anytime you think this seems worse than anxious, this has affected my life, or my people are telling me something's different, that might be a good time to ask for help. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, like that it's more prolonged than just situational, right? Because like anxiousness and anxiety are two different things, right? Like anxiousness is an emotion, anxiety is like this chronic mood, right? And so, yeah, I think that if you start to realize, okay, I've been isolating, like I get, a panic attack every time someone asks me to go out, something like that, then okay, this is more than just having, just being anxious about something situational or whatever that is.
Yeah, that's a great point, because a lot of times when people, there's nothing going on, they're sitting in their car at a stoplight and there's nothing going on, nothing triggered it, nothing happened, but all of a sudden they're having a panic attack, or they just can't calm their mind, even if they're on vacation or nothing bad is happening. They continually feel that way. That's a great point. It's not always going to be triggered by something. True anxiety. I often feel overwhelmed trying to juggle everything that is asked of me, from work, home, life, relationships, and all of those things. Sometimes I feel anxious, like I may drop one of the balls I am juggling. What can I do when I feel overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think in the society that we live in, somehow, exhausting yourself and being able to be, wear seven different hats all at the same time is a badge of honor, right? It's like, oh, you're so great because you can do all these things. When really our brains are not built to multitask like that. So when we are just stretched so thin over so many different things, we're not giving our whole to one thing. It can just feel very overwhelming. And I think maybe the first step is just accepting that like we're human, right? And that we're not always going to be able to do all the things at once, and giving ourselves some grace in that, I only have so many hours in the day. The more anxious and, anxiety that builds and builds and builds, can also help, can also kind of cripple us when we feel overwhelmed, right? It's like, I just have too many things happening, so I just shut down. So I think things like boundaries are really important. Whatever work looks like for you, okay, at this time every night, I'm shutting it off, right? Like I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to do something I enjoy. Being able to say no is another big one, right? Like we can't be everything to everyone all the time, and we can't fill from an empty cup. And so, as hard as it may be, sometimes we have to say no for our own sanity, and that's okay. Self care plays a big role in that too. Kind of like boosting your mental health, being able to identify, okay, I'm really struggling right now. Okay. And so what can I do in my environment, my situation to help with that? And sometimes that looks like, you know, having to pick the things that you really spend your time and focus on. You have to make those hard decisions about what to prioritize when we really start to feel overwhelmed. And as hard as that can be, sometimes if we don't do it on our own, life kind of forces it for us. And so I think when we're talking about juggling things and being overwhelmed, giving yourself grace and remembering that you're human, and you can't do all the things all the time, and that putting boundaries in place with people, with obligations, doesn't make you a bad person or anything like that. It makes you, gives you space in your life to be better for the things that you do.
Especially with women, we have a really hard time saying no. And also, we have a really hard time not saying sorry about everything. You can't do something, you don't have to say, I'm so sorry, I can't do it. I've got this and that, and making all these reasons. It's okay to say, thank you for understanding that I can't do that tonight. That's all you have to say. Sometimes people say, I can't do that, but maybe let's do it next week. And they don't even want to do it next week. So then they're stressed about that commitment they've already made. So, thank you for understanding I can't do that. I've tried to incorporate that with if I'm late or something, I actually can say thank you for waiting, or thank you for waiting for my reply to this email. You don't have to apologize. Thank you for understanding that we're not going to be able to play that this year. We're going to have to take a break. It's helpful to sometimes say something like, I don't have the bandwidth to do that. I'm just feeling a little, at this period of my life, I can't do that. This is totally fine. As far as juggling, I like to consider it like boxes and imagining that all of the realms of our life are like in boxes. My family, my friends, my school, my work, my play, all these things are in boxes. And oftentimes they're just like all over us. We can imagine boxes are just all over us that we have to do. Now think about a shelf and put all the boxes on a shelf and then decide, what do I want to take down right now? So, it's okay to watch Netflix and to sit around for a while and rest because you're tired. We don't want to do it for like 8 hours.
Right.
But if we want to say, hey, I'm really stressed. Today was really busy. I'm going to take down the rest box. I'm going to rest by just watching television, and that's okay. And if I think about work or I think about things I have to do, I'm going to say, no, you've got the Netflix box down right now. Don't think about work, or put that up. Yeah. Or if it's time to do school, take the box down and do that. And if you want to get up and go watch Netflix, tell yourself, no, I have the school box down right now. And as soon as I finish the school box, I'll put it up. So I think anytime that our body, like we talked about before with anxiety, feels threatened or perceived threat, it's going to have these anxious reactions. And sometimes our perceived threat is the busy schedule that we have. And it really is threatening. It's very overwhelming. I feel anxious returning to work and life outside of my home after the past year of self-isolation, remote work, etc. due to COVID. What can I do to ease my anxiety when returning to work and life outside of home? You are not alone. We did this as a collective society. Every person that you see, every person that you know, every person in the world just spent the 14 months in isolation. So we went through this collective experience together. There's something actually that was coined this year called the cave syndrome. It was a psychiatrist in Florida. It's not a diagnosable, disorder, but it's something that came about that he said what he started noticing was people were becoming attached to staying at home and attached to having to wear a mask and attached to not talking to people. And so we were in the cave for so long, the thought of getting out of the cave is really hard and really scary. And it's okay that it's hard and scary. It's okay that you are afraid or that you really don't want to do anything anymore. A lot of people, even that were extroverted before COVID, they had a hard time joining back in with friends. And people have started having social anxieties that they never had before COVID. So I think reminding yourself that, of course, I feel this way. I've been stuck in here for a long time. Others are feeling this way too. I'm not alone. I won't always feel this way. I feel anxious, but I'm going to take the step out and do this thing. And then maybe by being exposed to it again, I'll gradually start wanting to get in. It's important to know that not everyone returns at the same rate. Some of your friends may already be just completely out in society and they're not nervous about the virus anymore. They're not nervous about anything. They couldn't wait to take their mask off and they just seem like they're clicking along. But you might be like, I'm scared about contracting the virus and I don't know what's going on out there. So I really want to be slower in my return to society. And that is fine too. There's really not going to be any normal pace of returning to society, deciding what you want to do. Do you want to set boundaries and say no to things? You had an opportunity for a year with a great excuse to say, I can't do that. So you can still do that. You can still now say, I'm not able to do that. And that's okay. So some people are anxious just because they remember how busy life was before and they really are anxious about returning to that busyness again. I think that's probably a lot of it, that fearing the disease, fearing social interactions, and fearing, maybe even purpose. A lot of people are wondering, what do I even say to people when I go out? What do I want to do? Who am I? Kind of more existential type questions are happening that have made a lot of people really anxious about returning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's also been this term of collective trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think about the last year and a half of COVID, it's hit all of us in some way, right? Whether we have contracted the virus ourselves, whether we lost someone who had contracted the virus, whether we lost a job, whether our job looks different now. It really shifted everyone's world. And so I think there's also some validation in that knowing, okay, this isn't just me. Everyone else is feeling similarly, right? It may just kind of come out different. But I think the idea of collective trauma is validating in the way of like, okay, the last year and a half has been hard. It's been hard for however many different reasons. And that it's not just going to snap back. The world looks different now than it did a year and a half ago. And so there's this acceptance piece to it too. It is very different. Maybe my job looks different now. Maybe I have to find a new job. Whatever that is, that acceptance and grace I think, goes a long way as we begin to transition back to whatever life looks like now a year and a half later.
Mm-hmm. And some people's anxiety at this point has nothing to do with the risk of disease or things that we might think. Sometimes some people's anxiety is about relationships because the whole COVID situation even got political. It split up families and neighborhoods. Someone once told me that they felt like they were afraid to go out because they didn't know if they'd be accepted for their beliefs, or they felt like if they had on a mask, they were going to be ridiculed, or if they didn't, someone was going to think they didn't care about people. So there's a lot of different anxieties, and I would say respect everyone, no matter kind of like the returning is going to be at a different rate, but everyone's views on what it should look like is also going to be different. So I would say being really respectful to other people. Yeah, because it's really sad that a virus ended up causing so much turmoil within people and relationships, and a lot of it's related to that. This is not a question, but we wanted to honor this person, whoever wrote this, and put it in the box. And so we're going to read this and address it. Please help the homeless and those with mental health issues with housing, food, clothing, and a daily pantry. And please offer free classes, books, and fairs to the homeless and to those with mental health issues. I love this comment, and it challenges us to remember that there are many people that cannot afford mental health. When we talk about call your therapist or go to the doctor, many people cannot afford that care. Many places that the community is helping, a lot of them are United Way agencies that have extra funding just to help people that need free mental health and free groups. But this has actually challenged us, and I think we've talked to the library about maybe we'll do another conversation about this at a later date. But we hear you, and Restore Behavioral Health is going to do what we can to answer this question and to fill this need. Whether that means we're going to send some people to the library to do some help classes or some free groups. I'm making that commitment to our community that we will do something like that. And I don't know what that will look like, but we will make sure that through the different homeless shelters in our community that you'll be made aware of it. And I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is such a wide-reaching problem, right? And something that is so layered and requires a lot of different discussion that I definitely think having, honoring this real need that we have in our community with its own discussion, I think would be really important.
Yeah. So thank you for asking that, whoever, or for putting that in there. That it's important to keep us all accountable to help those that are less fortunate and have less than we do. So thank you for that. Thank you again for letting us be part of this discussion. We look forward to doing more of these with you. We are from Restore Behavioral Health in Norman, and our therapists, we have a large team of therapists that can address any type of need with children, adults, individuals, families, or couples. There are a lot of fantastic counselors, therapists, small groups, AA, Smart Recovery, the hospital groups, other addiction groups. There's a lot that your community does offer. There is, other than feeling afraid to, which is completely valid, there is no reason to not seek help for mental health. You have the providers in your community. Stigma has been reduced to some degree, like we've talked about. We want to encourage you to seek help if you need it. Thanks for coming,
Thanks
Shayla,
for having
joining
us.
us, and we'll talk to you guys later next time.